Hey everybody, this is Bart Hanson for Crush Live Poker, and we're going to take a look at an incredible hand that just came out from the latest High Stakes Poker Season 8. This is from Episode 12 between Phil Hellmuth and Doug Polk. Do me a favor, if you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, and take a look at this channel for more videos just like this coming soon. So this hand is played 200, 400, no limit, and they're playing 7-handed, and it's fairly deep. In fact, the shortest stack in this hand is actually Phil Hellmuth at 98,000, so just under 250 big blinds deep. And the hand starts off with Hellmuth raising from the hijack with Queen 10 offsuit. Now, James' board here is going to call on the button with pocket deuces, and it gets folded over to Doug Polk in the big blind, and he's getting right around 4-1. It makes kind of a speculative call here with 10-7 off, but we do go three ways here to the flop. And what an absolutely incredible flop here. Jack 9-8 with two spades. Hellmuth has flopped the nuts, and you can see here that Doug Polk has the second nuts with 10-7. Polk starts it off with a check, and Hellmuth actually checks this one as well. It's actually not that surprising. I don't know if he's trying to play balance, but Hellmuth loves to play a lot of pot control, especially with one pair of hands. He'll do a lot of checking without the intention to fold, just to sort of keep the pot small. And if you do have that approach on a board like this, it's not terrible to sometimes check to kind of keep it a little bit balanced, especially kind of in a multi-way pot. One of the more bizarre parts of this hand actually comes from James' board. When it gets checked over to him here on the button, he's actually going to bet 2,000 with pocket deuces. Normally, you wouldn't take a hand like this with basically 0% equity and bluff at it. I mean, you've got to deal with Polk in the big blind, and also Hellmuth, who's prone to check call quite a bit with medium strength hands. Just because he's checked you doesn't mean he's going to fold. Possibly what board might have been thinking is that if he could get through Polk, he might actually be able to bluff Hellmuth later on in the hand if Hellmuth were to check call on the flop. You know, if a 10 were to come, a queen, an 8, another spade. Usually I wouldn't bet in this spot, but he does go ahead and bet the 2,000. Now it's over to Polk, and obviously you want to start building a pot up at this stack depth. They're over 250 big blinds effective. Also, there's a lot of action killing cards that can come on the turn. I mean, more than half the deck is going to basically, change the nuts. And then obviously you'd have to get to a clean river here too. So I would probably almost always be raising here if I was Polk here as well. And he does make it 7,000. Now this is really where the hand kind of goes off the rails a bit. If you were trying to play somewhat of a balanced game, and you were Hellmuth, think about what you would do here if you had an overpair and had checked it. You would probably call the check raise, call or fold, but you certainly wouldn't jam all in. Well, that's exactly what Phil Hellmuth does. He check jams all in here for a massive overbet. And everybody who has ever seen Phil Hellmuth play on TV, or if you ever played with him in a tournament, you just know that there is absolutely no way he's making some sort of crazy play here with like aces or kings. This is almost always a strong hand. Once in a while, it might be a strong draw, but it's going to be something big. Obviously, board gets out of the way, and now it's back over to Doug Polk. Now, many of you watching this be like, oh, this is just a cooler Bart. Of course, Polk is going to call here. He's got the second nuts. Sometimes you have a second best hand over a best hand. It's just poker. But actually, if you take a look at it, I think that this is a dicey spot for Polk. And here's why. The all-in is such a gross overbet that Polk has to call 90,000 to win a pot of about 110,000. He's really not getting great pot odds here at all. In fact, it's about 1.22 to 1, which means he needs 45% equity to actually make this call. This is not common because when someone makes just a pot size bet, you're getting 2-1 from the pot. You only need 33%. But when you deal with these large overbets, your equity to make this call has to go up. This is pretty close to 1-1. It's 1.22 to 1, so he needs 45%. The other issue here, though, is that Polk cannot improve. If Hellmuth has the nuts, which we can see that he does, Polk has like 5% equity, and he's really only calling to hope once in a while that he'll get a chop. His hand can't improve. I mean, you would rather almost have a set here in Polk's scenario, because at least at that point with a set, you could improve if the board paired at the end. I mean, your equity would be about 35% against a straight. But here, you're almost drawing dead here against Queen 10. So whenever you're in this spot, you obviously have to put your opponent on a range of hands and then figure out if you have the proper equity against that range in order to call as it relates to the pot odds. Well, we know Polk needs 45%. So let's take a look and think about what is Hellmuth's range here, right? Well, it certainly is Queen 10. Now, there are 12 combos of Queen 10 because Polk has a 10 in his hand, which means that there are 4 queens left on the deck and 3 10s, so that makes 12 combos of Queen 10. We already know that he's not doing this with overpairs. So the other hands that he might have are sets. Now, I think probably only top set might be played this way if you're Hellmuth. I'm actually going to liberally give him all the combinations of sets because we're going to do some easy math in our head, but we'll circle back to that towards the end of this basically analysis. So let's just take a look at that bucket of hands, which is basically Queen 10 and sets. Now, I'm not going to give Hellmuth all of the Queen 10s because we don't really know if he would play every single Queen 10 in this fashion. Remember, he checked on the flop. Is he checking all the time? Is he check jamming all in all the time? I think it's actually really easy, and especially if you're at the table, to sometimes simplify the math in this particular spot and try to make the combinations of hands that your opponent might have as even as possible so that you can do some math here. So let's say that Hellmuth has 9 of the 12 Queen 10 combos. So that's 9 combos. And let's liberally give him all of the sets. Well, we know that there's 3 combos of each set. So 9 combos of sets, 9 combos of Queen 10. That's going to make it very, very easy for us to figure out the equity because we just simply need to average the percentages. So we already said that if he has Queen 10 and we're Polk, we have 5% equity. So it's 5% if he has Queen 10. Now, if he has a set, Polk has about 65% equity against all sets. So all you have to do is average 65 and 5. 65 plus 5 is 70, divided by 2, and you get 35% equity. So he has 35% equity against sets and Queen 10, and that represents 18 combinations of hands. Now, what else could Hellmuth have here? Well, a very, very big draw on this particular board would be 10x of spades. Ace 10 of spades, king 10 of spades, and I'm going to just give him 10-8 of spades, like I said, fairly liberally. Now, against 10x of spades types of hands, those 3 combos, it's interesting because Polk only has 55% against those hands. And that's really what kind of gets to the crux of this whole situation is that if Hellmuth has a huge draw, Polk is only a slight favorite. If Hellmuth has a set, Polk is a little bit of a favorite, but if Hellmuth has Queen 10, he's basically drawing dead. So we know that Polk would have 55% against those 10x of spades types of hands. That's only 3 combinations. Now remember, the sets in the Queen 10, we've assigned that 18 combos, right? 9 and 9. So how do we basically do the math? We've got 3 combos of draws, where Polk is 55, and then we've got another 18 combos of hands, where on average, he's 35. So I like to kind of take like the most common denominator here or look at it as a ratio. So what we would do here if we're Polk is we would weight the sets and Queen 10 6 times more likely. So we're 35% against those hands. 35 times 6 is 210. And then we would add 55 for the one sort of bucket of draws. And now we're at 265. And we would take that number, 265, and we would divide by 7. And we would basically get our equity, which is about 37 to 38%. So you can see that we're not getting the 45% that we would need. So let's go out on the limb and actually give Hellmuth even more draws, which I actually don't think is necessarily reasonable. But let's just do it as a math exercise. Let's say he's got 6 draws: ace, queen of spades, king, queen of spades, queen, 8 of spades. And again, the equities are trying to make it as easy as possible because the 10x of spades equity is actually probably, Polk is only 53. and these are a little bit less, but we'll say that, again, the whole bucket of draws pokes a 55%. So now, because it's 18 to 6 combos, we only need to weight that queen 10 and sets types of hands to 3 times. So what we would do here is we would take 35 and multiply by 3. We get 105. And then we would take 55 and add it to the 105. 160 divided by 4 instead of divided by 7. We get 40%. So it doesn't even change things all that much. If he's got a bunch of draws in here, pokes like 40%. If he's only got the 10x of spades draws, pokes like 37.5%. He just doesn't actually have the equity here. And if he makes this call on a $110,000 pot and, he's 10% short or 8% short, it's like an $8,000 to $10,000 losing call. So it looks like an epic laydown, and it is a very, very good laydown. But if you're ever in this type of situation where you can't improve and the hands that you're actually ahead of right now have a giant amount of equity against you, like Hellmuth's hands, like the 10x of spades, like the sets, it's really not going to be a good situation for you. Polk thought it through. He tried to get a little bit of a read on Hellmuth. He asked Hellmuth, "What do you got over there, Phil?" And then Hellmuth started talking. He said, "Maybe I have ace 10 of spades, king 10 of spades." And that, of course, would sort of make me think that he doesn't have those hands and kind of weight it more towards queen 10. And really, in actuality, I don't even know if Hellmuth has all the sets. Like, maybe he only has pocket jacks. Maybe he only has like 3 combos of pocket jacks, and then he has all the queen 10s. I mean, if he has all the queen 10s and pocket jacks and just like 1 or 2 draws, the equity just plummets. Polk's like in the high 20s, and it's not even close. The real crux here is that Hellmuth is really never overplaying anything in this spot. Probably the absolute worst hand that he has here is Jack-Jack. Maybe once in a while he's got 10x of spades, but he is very, very well represented with queen 10. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll have more high-stakes poker hand reviews right here on the Crush Live Poker YouTube channel. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.